Hello students, today we are going to be talking about factoring quadratics. Factoring quadratics is a 5-step process, so we're going to see all 5 steps today, but we're really going to dive into one of them. Make sure as we go that you take notes, and then you can ask questions in the end. Alright, so go ahead and title your notes Factoring Quadratics. When we are factoring a quadratic function, that means we have something x squared plus something x plus something. So it just depends on the type of equation that we have as to what numbers we have. So when we're factoring, like I just said, we have, oops, sorry. Let's see. Where do purple? So we have our ax squared plus bx plus c. This is a original equation of a quadratic. We always have to have an x squared because remember quadratic means our highest exponent is 2. The a in front is going to be a number, so that's our coefficient of x squared. The b in front is going to be our coefficient of the x, and then the c is the constant. The b and the c do not always have to be there, but most of the time they are. But there are some cases where they're not. In your notes, I need you to have the title down and then this ax squared plus bx plus c. So make sure you have that part down. Alright, so this is a 5-step process. I need you to write these 5 steps down. Step number 1 is factor out the GCF if there is one. So the GCF is what we have been doing in class the past few days. Sometimes there is not a GCF. But sometimes there is. So we always have to check to make sure there is not. If there is not, you can move on to step 2. If there is, you factor it out just like we have been doing. Then I need you to leave 2 or 3 lines in between. Step number 2 is make the table. This table is what we're going to be talking about today and how we create that table, so just hang tight and we will get to how we make this table. Leave 5 or 6 lines. Step 3, we're going to use the 2 numbers from the table to rewrite the function. So the reason we make the table is to find 2 numbers, and we're going to use those 2 numbers to rewrite the original function that they give us in the beginning. Leave 3 or 4 lines in between there. Step 4, we're going to factor the GCF out of each side. So once we rewrite the function, we will split it into 2 different sides, and on each of the sides we're going to factor out the GCF. Leave 3 or 4 lines in between, and then our last step is to write the factored form. Don't forget the GCF. Alright, so if we have a GCF, we're going to use it. If we don't, we just write the factored form. So again, we're going to be going through these steps one by one. Today we are going to focus on making the table. So the rest of these you can just ignore for now, just until we get to the end. So don't worry about them if it doesn't make sense right now. It's not supposed to. Alright, factoring out the GCF in between those lines up there that you left, we want to find the GCF between all the terms and factor it out. So just like we've been doing in class, we find that greatest common factor between the terms, and then we factor that out. That's our very first step. Alright, so step number 2 is we're going to make this table. Before we make the table, we have to know what A, B, and C are. So like I said before, A is the number in front of the x squared, B is the number in front of x, and C is the number by itself, or the constant. So we're just going to take a look at some examples here. So on this one, our A value, the number in front of x squared is 2. So 2 is our A value. Our number in front of the x is a 9, and it's a positive 9 because it says plus 9. And then our last number without the variable is a negative 4. So we have to make sure we bring that negative 4 in there. And I did not realize that these were going to show up, so I'll erase these. Alright, so we have to make sure we pay attention to those negatives and positives because those need to be identified when we're identifying A, B, and C. Alright, let's look at this next one. X squared. There's no number written in front of x squared, but we all know there is an imaginary 1 that we don't write. So our A value is 1. If we look at our number in front of x, it is a negative 3, so our B value is negative 3. And our last one here is plus 1, so the C value is plus 1. One more together. Our a value on this one is the number in front of x squared, so it's a 4. Our b value, there's no just x here, so our b value on this one is actually 0 because we don't have anything. And then our c value, it's -9, so our c value is a negative. Alright, so what I want you to do is complete the rest of this table. Go ahead and fill in a, b, and c for each of these functions. While you do this, pause the video. Okay, now let's check our answers. Make sure you have these same answers as I do. If you don't, make sure you change them. If you don't understand how I got these answers, make sure you ask a question. Because like I said, in order to do the rest of this process, we have to know how to do this. So ask a question if you do not understand. Alright, so this table that I've been talking about for step number 2 is going to look something like this. I need you to write this in your notes. If you want to just make a T-chart, you can just make a T-chart. And on the left side, we're going to multiply to get a times c. Remember that a is the number in front of the x squared, the b and the c is the number at the end. So we're going to multiply a times c, and that's going to go in the left side. And then on the right side is just our b value. So we're going to add to get b. And we're literally going to find two numbers that multiply to a times c and add to b. The reason we are doing this is because if you take a look at this problem, this is what we've been doing. We've been multiplying these two binomials together, and we multiply it out to get something that looks like this. Now we are going to be going in the opposite direction, and we're going to be going back up to our binomials. That is our end goal here, is to get back up to the binomials. In order to do that, if we make a table to get a times c, which is -6, let's erase this. And add to get our b value, which is 5. Well, two numbers that multiply to -6, that would be -6 times 1. -6 plus 1 is a -5. We need a +5 though. So if we flip-flop our signs, 6 plus -1 is going to give us a 5. So our two numbers that we found in our table are 6 and -1. If you look back up here in our example, we have a +6 and a -1. So that is the reason we're doing this table, is to find these two numbers. So when we're working backwards and going from our quadratic function to our two binomials, we can get this step by making that table. Alright, so here's some examples. First thing we want to do is identify a, b, and c. So our a value is in front of the x squared. Our b value, remember we include those signs, and our c value. So if we're going to multiply to get a times c and add to get b, our a times our c, so 6 times 7 is 42. And then our b value is -23. So working through this, well, we could start with 1 times 42. 1 plus 42 is going to give us 43, and that's not the number we need, so that one doesn't work. 2 times 21, because 2 goes into it, so 2 plus 21. 2 plus 21 is 23, but we need a -23. So in order to make it a -23, we're just going to make both of our numbers negative. So -2 plus -21 is going to give us a -23. And those are the two numbers we need. So -2x minus 21x. Alright, So our A value in this one is 1. Our B value is -2. And our C value is -24. So if we multiply to get A times C and add to get B, 1 times -24 is -24. And then our B value is -2. Now since our 24 is negative, at least one of our numbers has to be negative. So -1 times 24, -1 plus 24. -1 plus 24 is 23, and that is not what we need. So we'll go on to 2. 2 times 12, -2 plus 12. -2 plus 12 is 10. That's not what we need either, so we'll keep going. -3 times 8, -3 plus 8. -3 plus 8 is 5. We're getting closer. -4 times 6. -4 plus 6, that's a +2. We need a -2, so again, we just have to flip-flop our signs. So -6 and +4 are going to give us that -2. So we have -6x plus 4x. Alright, let's try this one. Our A value is 7, our B value is +4, and our C value is -20. So we're going to multiply A times C, so 7 times -20 is -140, and add to get B, which is a +4. Alright. Now this one, if we start with -1 times 140, we're going to be way off when we add these together. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Let's try 5. So 5 times 28. -5 plus 28 is going to give us a 23. So we're getting closer. I'm going to jump to 10. -10 times 14. -10 plus 14. Oh, that is a +4, which is exactly what I need. So you can use reasoning here to kind of jump ahead so you don't have to test every single factor that we have of a certain number. Alright, so it's just a lot of guessing and checking, making sure you're multiplying numbers and adding numbers to get the numbers in the top. Alright, so I want you to try these 3 problems. Once you have these 3 problems down, show them to me and I will check them. If you're struggling with them, please come ask me questions and I will help you on them. We really need you to understand this process before we move on to anything else in this process. So if you don't understand, please ask. If you do understand, please try. You should at least be able to fill out the top of the tables. But if you don't understand how to get the other numbers, please come ask questions.